You've probably heard it before. Maybe you've even been the one to say it. It was just a joke. But here's the problem. Jokes aren't neutral. In fact, they shape what gets laughed at and what gets tolerated at work. And look, nobody wants to ban banter, but we do need to ask what kind of culture we're reinforcing with the types of jokes we play up to, and perhaps especially around those that are always at somebody else's expense. Humour at work, it can be brilliant at breaking tension and building trust and bringing people into the fore, but it can also be used to exclude, to diminish people, and really importantly, reinforce stereotypes. And it's important to understand which outcomes each of us as individuals are influencing. In our first Movers Confidence study, there's a link in the comments, women are repeatedly telling us these little moments are actually some of the biggest ones that cut the deepest, because they're constantly dismissed. And even when they are called out, the reaction is often super hard to deal with, especially in big or existing groups. I remember when I was in the police force and people used to call you the fun sheriff if you called out poor behaviour that they didn't like. And ultimately what I learned is it truly affects belonging. It certainly did for me. So let's be real. If a joke needs to be at someone else's expense as the punchline, it's probably actually not that funny. And so your 3 moves for week 3 are: first, call it out, but ask for clarity. So an example might be that when someone drops a racist, sexist, or totally off joke, you actually say something like, something where you, acting dumb. Like, what exactly did you mean by that? Or, I don't get it. Can you explain what you meant? And you can sort of finish it off with an unenthusiastic at the end. And it's not about confrontation, it's about making subtext visible. When someone has to explain the joke, it usually falls apart, and they often do start to see the problem. And the pause, that's the power, that's where it lands for them. Second, sometimes it's just about being the person that doesn't laugh. And I know that sounds really small, but it speaks volumes. You don't have to say anything, but not joining in is a powerful form of dissent. Physically walking away is even better. When the usual laugh tactic doesn't play, people do tend to take notice. And third, if you can, use humour to flip the energy. If you're comfortable, you could try something like, ooh, that one's aged worse than dial-up internet. Or, wow, 1997 called, they want that joke back. Same vibe, different direction. Now, a bonus action, as I have every week, one of the things I know is that the most harmful cultures aren't created in policy, they're created in moments just like these. The quiet erosion of culture on a day-to-day basis, sometimes from a crap joke. So you can share the First Movers Confidence study so we can keep amplifying the voices that truly know the difference. The link to complete it is in the comments, and as always, my friends, here's to modern manhood. I'll see you next week.